Hello. After last two lessons, when I was showing two victories against Christopher Lutz and Boris Gelfand, two attacks which were comparably, easy to understand, logical attacks. Today, I would like to present you a very different game, probably one of the most, if not the most complicated crazy games I've ever played in my chess career in classical chess. One of the most inadequate position at some point appeared on the board where it was not even clear who is attacking whom. Both kings were not doing great, and finally I managed to win it, to explore the weakness of my opponent's king, but my king was also not extremely safe for the full whole game. Very memorable game. It was played against Veselin Topalov. I was black in Belgrade tournament 1995. Actually, it was a very nice tournament for me. I shared first place with Boris Gelfand and played many very interesting games with some combinations, some attacks. So maybe from the creative point of view, maybe my best tournament. Yeah, a lot of sacrifices and beautiful games. I lost one game, won 6 games, and made 4 draws out of 11 rounds. So this game against Veselin Topalov was played somewhere in the middle of the tournament. Topalov played e4 against me, so this time I have chosen to play Rouser and Bishop c4. This move you already remember from this course. So my game against Vasily Ivanchuk from 1993, I played Queen b6 again. And Topalov played knight db5. If you remember, still Ivanchuk played knight b3 against me. Topalov himself, he tried, I think, twice to take on c6 against me, also bc, and the second time I managed to equalize there. So this game he went knight db5. A bit strange move. The idea is that after a6, obviously, that white has bishop e3, queen a5, and knight d4. At that time, it was not supposed to be too dangerous line. And actually, it is not dangerous. Later, I just equalized a couple of times, just playing e6, castles, bishop e7, and then we get this kind of typical Scheveningen position with the queen already on a5. Instead of usual square d8, but in any case, it's definitely in black's favor. So even with the queen on d8, it's not much for white. So here, black should be doing fine. So objectively, the system is not too dangerous. I would just like to mention that knight takes c4 was supposed to be just a blunder actually because of queen f3. And in case of knight f6, because f7 is hanging, then white takes on c6. But actually nowadays engines say that after knight g5, and let's say bishop takes g5, knight takes d4, giving white a chance to take with a queen or bishop on f7. Probably both leads to white's advantage, but it's not losing by force at least. But in any case, knight takes e4 is not recommended. But at that time, knight e5 was supposed to be the simplest way to fight against this way of playing for white. But and now the theory was, white would play knight b3, because of course if the bishop retreats, then already e4 pawn is hanging, so black can just take the pawn. So knight b3 first, queen c7, bishop e2, e6, and then, as I mentioned already, the knight is going to c4 in these positions. And all in all, was supposed to be okay for black. But Topalov played a very interesting novelty, bishop d3 at the time. So he wants to keep his knight on d4, even with the price of exchanging this bishop for the knight. But then white would take with the c pawn, so improving his center. And of course, probably nowadays I would have just played simply e6 here. f4, I guess, is the idea, and just take on d3, c takes d3, and normal position, maybe, well, a bit more comfortable for white. White usually castles, plays queen f3, and the knight is quite good on d4, but nothing too bad. Yeah, I wanted to, yeah, I was not totally satisfied with it at that time. And by the way, I can try to attack this bishop, knight fg4, but doesn't seem to lead anywhere really after bishop f4, for instance. So I decided to play knight eg4, very principal move, because bishop has to retreat to c1. This I saw, because in case if bishop retreats to d2, then queen b6, and white has serious problems with a knight on d4 and pawn on f2, because knight cannot retreat, f2 is hanging. So bishop c1, so the idea is that, of course, now queen b6 is not, after queen b6, black is not threatening to take on d4 because of bishop b5 check, a very typical trick. So white can, let's say, just castle, for example, here. So that doesn't make sense. And my idea was to play g6. And then what I wanted is, I wanted white to start with, let's say, h3, knight e5, and then bishop e3, bishop g7, or something like that. And then, well, I managed to put my bishop on g7, and h3 is not such a useful move. So here, after f4, let's say, I guess I would take and castle, and black should be fine with a bishop on g7 already. Seems to be quite a good dragon variation for black. But the problem was actually that my opponent went knight b3. This I saw. The idea is that, yeah, queen b6, attacking the pawn. So, and in case of castle, I wanted to play bishop g7. Probably white has nothing better than finally kicking this knight away from g4, knight e5, bishop e3, queen c7, and quite similar position, very quiet, normal game. Again, the dragon style position. Well, maybe if white has anything, then very little, but in general, I was always satisfied with black in Sicilian, well, when I can get this kind of playable, complicated position. But Veselin played queen e2 here, which makes sense because now white wants to play f4, just to cut the knight first, and then the knight might get into trouble, because then white would already play h3. So that is the idea. Maybe white can also manage long castle at some point. So a good move, queen e2. And here, I could have, of course, played a simple move to retreat knight e5. It gets to a similar position, of course, a slightly better version for white, because let's say after f4, knight d3, cd2, cd3, let's say bishop g7, but of course queen e2 is much more useful move than h3. Then after, if white plays rook c1, at some point probably black will have to retreat again with a queen somewhere. So, but still not such a big difference. I believe white is maybe here already a bit better, but definitely playable position. But you already know by this moment that at that age, at that time, I was searching for adventures myself, and I still wanted to get this h3 on the board. So I decided to, after quite a long reflection, I decided to go to play bishop g7. Of course, in case of h3, knight e5, I get what I wanted to get. But of course, f4 was worrying me a lot. Now white just wants to go h3, knight h6, g4, and my knight on h6 will be totally cut. But I had this very strange idea in my mind to play knight h5. Not the most classical way of playing, to have two knights on the edge of the board. But it's actually objectively, in fact, it's pretty okay for black. It's just that the game becomes really sharp and very risky. But that's what I was seeking for, actually, most of the time when I was young. So knight h5, the idea is that, white cannot play h3. So this is the way to stop the idea h3, because, of course, black has knight g3 after h3. And then, the most principal, obviously, move is knight d5. This is what was played by white. But if bishop d2, then my plan was to take on c3. Also quite an original way of playing, but it's more tactical. The idea is that after bishop takes c3, black can take this pawn on f4, making use of the fact that the queen is under attack. And let's say after queen d2, e5, protecting with this move both my knight on f4 and the rook on h8, and black is just pawn up, I guess, here. So bc3 is necessary, and then bishop d7, and then a very strange position, which is difficult to understand who is better and why, because white still cannot really play h3. Okay, he cannot make long castle simply because the king will be weak. In case of knight d4, there is always this e5 idea. I suspect black is doing fine here. So knight d5 is obviously the main test of this strange black's concept. Queen d8 and now bishop d2. This is a good move because, again, if castles, it's still these knights are quite unpleasant on g4 and then h5. White here already can play h3 because if knight g3, I guess the problem is that after queen f3, let's say knight takes f1, hg, my knight is trapped and I'm going to lose this knight. So knight g3 is not working already here, but I can just retreat with a knight to f6, then threatening knight g3, and then after exchange of the knight on f6, I don't see a slightest problem for black. A very good position. But of course, the most tested move is bishop d2. This is pretty annoying because now white is threatening bishop a5. And here, well, not too much choice for black, because also white simply wants to make long castle. Then my knights will be really not great on standing on h5 and g4. And I prepared the plan which I actually played in the game. But in fact, here there was a moment when black could get a very decent position. By playing, actually equalize, if you can use this word in such a complicated position, but by playing e5. Of course, my play before was pretty original, but that is really something too original even for me, because your knight is on d5, you want to attack it, and then you just give the square forever, on your own will, playing e5, but it actually works tactically. It simply tactically seems to work because, of course, now if long castle, knight takes e4 I have, so bishop a5 is not on the agenda anymore. And then after exchanging, let's say black on top of everything gets this very nice square on e5, so this is not an option. Of course, a very dangerous move is g3, but then after ef, bishop a5, queen g5, we get to, well, quite a strange position. Knight c7 check, king f8, knight takes a8, f takes g3. And I think computer is quite positive about black's chances here, even though white is rook up, but his king is stuck in the center. And by the way, I can tell it's not the most crazy position you will have today, but still it's pretty strange, I would say, but seemingly it's quite okay for black. And another way is to play bishop a5, of course, the most critical move, queen h4 check, g3, knight takes g3, this is very direct, hg take on h1, king d2, queen h3, everything is completely forced, black wants to castle, so of course check takes on 8, queen takes g3. Actually, we've got something rather similar in the game, but this is a better version for black. Now knight b6, knight has to hurry back, especially knight d5 check is an idea. E takes f4, and okay, this is the first line of the engine now, rook f1. For some reason, before giving check, it's better to play first rook f1, bishop e6, and now, okay, this position takes, bishop e5, let's say bishop b6, h5. 3 pawns for the piece. I don't know how to assess it. Yeah, it's very difficult to say anything about this position if you don't have engine in front of you, but the engine pretends that black is doing fine, that black is not worse. I think it gives about equal. It says that the position is about equal. So that actually would prove my strange concept that it was working well, but it's really to play 5, too difficult for me at least. So my plan was to go e6. I mean, the same idea, but I want to attack the knight. Actually, now the game gets very direct. Bishop a5, queen h4 check. The main problem was that I just was so difficult to assess the position which arises. g3, knight takes g3, knight c7 check. Well, here already with a pawn on e6, this is working much better because with a pawn on e5, there was f4 pawn was hanging in many lines. But in fact, also hg was quite dangerous. Queen takes g3 check, king d2. Okay, now ed5. Fortunately for black, the pawn on f4 is hanging. And now, the strange thing is that after e takes d5 check, actually the only move for black here is, believe it or not, but king d7. It's very important to put king not on f8. That was just bad. But on d7, because the f4 pawn is hanging, and what is very important, rook e8 is a threat. Rook e8, and after king d7, let's say rook f1, rook e8, black is probably just better. But rook af1, well, this move probably in my calculation, and I had to calculate this variation, I guess, when I was already playing, going for this bishop g7, f4, knight h5. So already here I had to at least have an understanding that this position can arise. And the point of rook f1 is that black is now not in time to castle, because after rook f3 the queen is trapped. So actually rook f3 is a threat, so I have to play knight f6, ed5 check, king f8. Let's say rook f3, queen g4. At least I managed to save my queen. Already good news. But this position, queen f2, of course, the position is very dangerous for black. The king is on f8, but it's still far from clear. I mean, again, over the board, it's very difficult to understand what is going on in such a position. It's clear that it's risky for both, in fact. So I would maybe give more than usual computer assessments today during this lesson of a position, because I don't know how to assess it humanly. To say, so computer assessment is that in a human language, white is slightly better. Believe it or not, 0-4 maybe for white, or 0-5. So I don't know why it's so, but it's clear it was also a very dangerous option. So all in all, e6 was a mistake. e5, as I mentioned, e5 was a better move, because here white has more than one way to get an advantage. But I think knight c7 check is a better move. Now king e7, more logical than king f8, but king f8 is also possible, but still white is better here. But of course, king e7, I want to protect the pawn on d6 and to have a chance to get my rook from h8 into a game. So a logical move. hg. Well, probably objectively better was to play queen takes h1 check here. King d2, queen h3. And if you remember, we had this position with a pawn on e5, and but now there is a major difference here. After takes rook f1 with a pawn on e5, I would have just taken on f4. And if you remember, black was doing fine. Now in this position, black has to spend a couple of tempes getting this pawn, let's say bishop h6, and white is using this moment to get his king in a safe position. Still, it doesn't look too bad. It looks not so clear, but actually computers are giving a considerable advantage for white here, more than +1 here. So here white is better, I suppose, bishop e6, but then actually I think the main problem here is moves like bishop b4, knight a5, knight c4, that my king is still vulnerable in the center, while the opponent's king is doing very well, very safe on b1. Maybe other moves as well, but all in all, this is better for white. So I close my eyes and played queen takes g3 check, king d1. Well, unfortunately for white, he has to go to d1 because otherwise the pawn on f4 is hanging. Knight f2 check, king d2. Well, of course, it's a very interesting game. When you play sometimes, even if you're a professional, it's just that you see some extremely sharp, complicated, crazy variations. And I'm not sure I liked very much objectively my position, but it was so original and interesting, this position, that I think we both, with a lot of pleasure, went for it. just because it's really fun after all to play this position. Yeah, as unprofessional as it sounds, but we also professional chess players. We also have some emotions, and I can tell you really enjoy when the position is crazy and complicated. It gives you some more adrenaline and some kind of artistic pleasure, which we also have. Yeah, we are not only fighting for points and places in the tournaments, but I remember I liked very much how the turn of events, even if again I was not sure I'm doing well here, and it's true I'm not doing well at all at this moment. But again, the position is so complicated that it's very difficult to play it perfectly. I mean, impossible for humans to play it perfectly. So in a way, in this particular game, maybe you'll see more mistakes from both players than in earlier games and in games which we'll consider later, but it's understandable. I mean, this position is just completely crazy. Very difficult to understand what is going on actually on the board. So I played knight takes h1. Objectively, maybe the better was to take on f4, but actually white is simply have a big advantage here. Queen e3 takes on e3. I have to take on h1, knight a8, knight g3. And even though I have 3 pawns and seemingly pass pawns, I mean, seemingly doesn't seem to be so clear, but actually black's position is pretty bad because rook g1, very important not to let white push his pawn h5, h4. Basically, it's almost forcing black to play knight h5, not really what I wanted, but what to do, because if you play bishop e5, then there are many problems, especially knight b6, and then knight c4 becomes a threat. So knight h5, bishop b4, and in fact, my d6 pawn becomes very vulnerable, and I'm not in time to get my knight into the game. I mean, not to start pushing pawns. White wants just to play knight b6, knight c4, knight a5, knight c4. Not enough play for the piece. White has a big advantage. So I played knight takes h1, and now very strange decision by Topalov. Very strange, because I was very worried about rook takes h1 during the game. Yeah, because it's so logical. Well, you can always, I mean, here knight on c7 is not so bad, and it's very important to connect rooks and to get the rook into the game. So I was not sure if black is okay after rook h1, but in fact nowadays when you switch on a powerful engine, you understand that it's practically winning. Actually, white has a winning advantage after rook takes h1, even if it's not so obvious on the first sight. Even during the game I was not totally sure, and I guess Topalov as well, since he didn't play this move. But actually, it's pretty bad for black. After queen takes f4 check, king d1, rook b8. Yeah, I have to retreat with my rook. And I can understand that, first of all, black has already 4 pawns. Yeah, a rook and 4 pawns for 2 knights. So he has a material advantage. And the knight on c7 is a bit stuck. So it's actually, if black stabilizes, he will just be better, obviously. Yeah, but the problem is that if you continue calculating the variation, then you quite quickly understand that black is not able to stabilize this position, because white starts to attack black's queen with every single move. Bishop d2. So very, very important is that after queen e5, white has bishop c3. Otherwise, black would just be better, but this is not playable. The bishop on g7 is lost. So queen g3, and now bishop e1. For some reason, very, very precise sequence of moves. Queen f4, rook f1 now. Again, my poor queen has only one reasonable square, g5. Queen f2, very dynamic play. Rook f8, and now bishop d2. Finally, again, attacking the queen, and queen g4 check, king c1. And now this position, bishop d7, even though also it doesn't still look so bad actually for black. I mean, if you don't go deep, and of course, you had to calculate a very long line, and actually still to assess this crazy position, I'm quite surprised. I mean, I'm not losing the queen. Black's queen is not getting lost, but despite black's material advantage and seemingly solid position, actually it's just lost. After bishop f4, well, computer gives more than +3 here. So, well, white's king now is safe, and he starts a decisive attack against black's king. So that could be, the way for me to, to get mated in a beautiful way, maybe here somehow, and to be on the other side of this lesson. But fortunately for me, very strange decision, knight takes a8. So now queen takes a4 check, queen e3, and queen h2 check, queen e2. White has nothing better than to repeat moves. I did it once, queen e2, but I didn't have enough of complication. It would be a pity just to make a draw, to repeat moves here. So I went bishop h6 check, which is forcing to play king c3. And again, of course, I was asking for adventures. Yes, of course, I saw that it's actually very good just to change queens now, because white's pieces are pretty discoordinated. And after bishop e2, knight g3, let's say bishop d3, bishop d7, and knight b6, bishop c6, this is a totally different story. We had a similar endgame, similar in brackets, because here black has a 10 times better version of this endgame. I've analyzed it a bit. Computer gives an advantage for black here. Rook e1, bishop f4. It's also not totally trivial, to assess this position over the board, because, I have 3 pawns, but white can also start actually attacking the pawn on d6 after bishop b4. And doesn't look too bad for white, but actually black, it's just a matter of tempest. It's very direct place. So I guess our intuition both betrayed us a bit in this game, because you cannot calculate out this position. And, thinking about here in the move 28 about exchanging queens, okay, you get to this position, which is move 33 already, and still it's such a mess. White wants to play e5. Check, I'm not sure it changes much. White can just go to king d2, for instance, and knight c4 is still an issue. Maybe even knight d4 is possible, I don't know. But actually h5 is working well here. e5 and h4. Bishop takes d6 check, king e8. Yes, it can be winning, can be losing this position. Yeah, but because knight d4, and now the very important move, bishop g2. And of course, it's clear that I'm trying to promote my pawn, but my king is in a really dire straits. Yeah, because imagine white bishop gets to this diagonal somewhere, I can easily get mated. But there is no mate, and actually, it seems that black is winning in this position after bishop g2. Again, very difficult to assess it, of course. But but queen e5 check objectively is a mistake. Objectively, but again, of course, king b4. But of course, you want to get the opponent's king on b4, and the position was getting more and more crazy, which was raising my interest in this game. And so such a nice position, king on b4, knight on a8, my knight is on h1, complete mess. Yeah, I was enjoying myself. So knight g3, queen e1, a bit strange move. I thought queen b6, queen f2 was more logical, but okay, bishop d7, it would lead to some position like this. I will not, it's very difficult to assess it. Computer again believes that it's in white's favor, but okay, there is not a very big difference. And there will be many positions like this still today. So let's concentrate on queen e1. There is not a major difference between those two moves. Probably queen f2 is a bit more accurate. So bishop g7. So this is the position. Now knight b6. Engines even playing rook b1 here, just protecting the pawn on b2, but this is really a bit strange. Bishop d7, knight b6, bishop c6. I will present you some variations here, more for your joy, more to enjoy this game than to understand what is going on. Because when I was checking it with very powerful modern computer programs, I can tell you cannot guess every second move. You don't understand what's the point of this move. For instance, here a4 is by far the best move in this position. That I can understand because white wants to play knight c4, but here it's not possible because of this fancy mate on a4. So that's why a4. And now, for instance, the main line goes like this: knight takes c4, knight c4, queen f4. Nice position, no? Bishop b6, trying to get knight a5, I suppose, somewhere. Rook c8, king a3, f5. So this is the main line and more or less equal position. Believe me or not, but the computer says it's equal. But I've rarely, and I guess you too, have rarely seen, at least in a game of top players, such a strange position where how can you assess it? How can you know what's going on? You just play with your intuition. Also, there are not so many forced lines so far. Here, the game is not forced. It's more positional, but with a totally unsettled, I would say, unsettled principles here in this position. I don't know what to do. If I start pushing my pawns, my king might become weak. Should I change queens? Should I not change queens? Can I change queens? So every question, I mean, queen, maybe white wants to play queen b4 at some point. I don't know what's going on. Let's say equal position and move to the game. Knight b6 is a logical move, obviously. White wants to play knight c4 and now d5. This is an important option for black. d5. Otherwise, knight c4 was a very serious threat already. And the point is that ed5 is just bad because of queen d6 check. And maybe that's what Veselin missed, that after knight c5, there is bishop d4, and suddenly black is winning. I know that your head is already exploding, watching, trying to understand what's going on. I have a big advantage that I've prepared, analyzed deeply this game with the engine. So for me, it's easier. Even though I still don't understand the reasons of moves, but at least I know the assessment of the engine. So the assessment after ed5, queen d6 check is that black is just winning here. King c4 has to be played, queen f4 check, forcing king c5. There is no mate yet, but bishop d7 is a killer. Bishop d7 is a very strong move because I'm threatening queen d6 check, king c4, and bishop b5 mate. And in case of knight takes d7, then this comes. Nice, b5 is mate. So ed5 is losing, that's I saw, but here there is a very big choice of moves for white. And of course, it's just, of course, Veselin played one of the worst possible moves, which is not a blunder at least. But the task is extremely difficult. Also, we didn't have that much time already, maybe 20 minutes each, and to understand what's going on in this position. Topalov, he played king a4, kind of, very human move again. And there will be more example of it in this course. That what I've already mentioned, that, as it goes, the wisdom goes in extraordinary situations requires extraordinary measures. So, I mean, that is a typical psychological mistake of players who are defending, whose king is in danger, is to try to get the skin as safe as possible, to just because you don't want it to stay on b4 under many checks. After king a4, seemingly it stays safer on a4. But actually, you need to calculate, and knight a4 is a poor move because of the operation which I've made. Okay, it's a kind of human move, logical move. If you don't want to calculate variation, this is probably a move you would play because it looks very dangerous a position, but it's a wrong move. So here, what was the right moves? Hard to say which move is the best. Probably rook d1. Again, just, trying to fight for the d line. Let's put it this way. I don't know why rook d1, but this seems to be the best move in this position. What are the other options? Another interesting move is queen g1. trying to go queen c5. That actually makes sense, at least. You want queen c5 check. What doesn't make sense is the following play. d4, of course, I guess that was a problem for white, because defending against queen c5 check and taking another pawn. Black has 5 passed pawns, by the way, connected, but still knight c4, queen g5. And now the best move is, I don't even want to ask you to think about it, because it's just, well, you'll break your head thinking in this position. So I just tell you king a3 is the best move. So white wants bishop b4 check, once white wants to start attack. But one thing we can conclude, here, that actually it's this position is about who first creates threats against the opponent's king. That's why instead of playing king a4 as it was played in the game and trying to secure your king, actually the white's task was probably Topalov didn't get the main point of the position, which is you need to try to create threats against the opponent's king first. That is more important than securing your own one. And here king a3, so bishop b4 check is a threat. The best move is king f8. And again, as you already probably guessed, this is an equal position. Here, according to the engine, more or less equal. Well, let's leave it as it is. I don't know why it's equal, but it's equal. But of course, I'm half joking, because, I mean, even if the computer says it's 0-0, I mean, it's very unlikely the game will be drawn here. So that was an option. Another option was to play c3. Also made some sense, I mean, to protect this b2 pawn. Still d4 and bishop c2. So just a positional way of playing. I guess now also it's protecting the d4 square. So in case of queen d6 check, white has knight c5, such a concentration of pieces on the queen side. And now black has two options. Also, the position is about equal, maybe slightly better for white, computer says. One is quite logical, to play f5 here. f5 just to secure the king, to get the f7 square. Maybe now the best move for white is obviously, it's pretty logical, is a4, of course. I guess the idea is just to get first of all, to have knight c4 is an idea, and also to have king a3, king a2, to secure the king there, with a certain advantage, slightly better for white here. But the best move, after some reflection, computer gives the best move. If I ask you to find this best move, it would rather be for fun, because I don't think it's possible to play this move for a human player. And so the best move is king f6, according to the engine. I don't know, maybe with the idea to play king g5, I don't know why, but actually just securing the king, because the point is that the queen f2 check, knight f5, the king is more secure on f6. Now, again, the first line of the engine is a move which I think if somebody would have played all the board, he would be immediately disqualified under the cheating accusations, because it's c4 is the main line. No, I mean, I've really rarely seen such a totally crazy position. I mean, I don't know what you just played. Okay, it's totally unhuman to play best moves in this position. So you just play it and you pray and you hope that your opponent will be the last one who will make a mistake, but it's impossible to play it well. So c4 and h5 now, the best move, the first line. And again, the position is 0-3 for white here. I think the final assessment. Probably my guess is that maybe black is preparing maneuver king g5, king h6, maybe, or just pushing the h pawn. I don't know. So really, amazing variations. The position is really unique. But the best move is rook d1. Rook d1. Why I'm showing you also for pleasure, for joy, for fun, if you want, but also, you can draw certain conclusions out of it. That in such positions, yeah, you just have to play extremely resourcefully, and sometimes completely crazy ideas can work. Yeah, so sometimes there is tactics here. All of a sudden, the game actually gets pretty positional. Yeah, pretty positional in those lines after c3 or queen g1. Actually, yeah, so you need to. In a way, to forget about all these positional patterns if the situation on the board is so crazy, and try to be inventive, resourceful, and then let's see what will happen. Yeah, because you can imagine that while playing after d5, for instance, it was impossible even to assess even closely the position. I mean, I knew that it could be winning or losing or maybe equal, but how do you know? Yeah, it's impossible to understand. So that makes the task even more difficult. You don't know whether you are playing for a win or maybe you're already losing almost by force. No idea. So rook d1, and now maybe yeah, that actually would give white an advantage. Because there is one, I think more human is to play rook e8 here, just trying to get the king to f8. King a4 already now is better than a move earlier. King, don't ask me why. King f8, bishop b4 check, king g8. This already actually it looks better than ever for black, this position, because the king is safe. But this particular position actually is much better for white. E d5, because unfortunately for black he has to change queens. E d5, queen e5, takes, knight c5, h5. It still looks very unclear because the h pawn can end up on h1 pretty soon. But after rook e1, tactically, it seems that white is first, and actually white has a big advantage. And after, in case of knight takes e4, I suppose that is what Topalov didn't like, because well, why to give the central pawn for free? Not so clear for the moment what is such a big deal playing rook d1, but now c4 is strong. Again, yeah, f5 now the best move. Don't ask me why. Again, bishop takes e4, queen takes e4, queen f2, and actually, again, black is already having material advantage, and seemingly the king is better secure, but actually not. Actually, it's all about who will create threats quicker. So white wants to play rook e1, maybe queen c5 check, and even if position is not yet totally clear, but it's considerably better for white according to engine, like +1 here or something. So that would lead to an advantage, but okay. What was played is king a4. That would be, of course, it's a very logical move. You want to play queen before check, bishop before check, but the problem is bishop d7 check, knight takes d7, b5 check, intermediate, king b4, because of course, yeah, you cannot go to a3, the b2 pawn is hanging. So king b4, king takes d7. Now, I guess we had not too much time left, but it's clear that black had obviously improved his position, yeah, because now my rook is entering into the game and white king becomes really vulnerable. So this was a time actually to calculate variations, well, to close your eyes and to go all in. But again, computer finds the best way to play here. But I don't know if anyone would have found actually how to play this position. It's just so crazy. Yeah, I will just show you the line which would probably give white significant chances to make a draw. It's beautiful. It is crazy. It is unfindable. Only just by luck you can find it, but still it is important because that was actually the best way for white to proceed in this position. So maybe you can try, but this is task for advanced players, and probably you should really take time. Let's say you can, if you want to improve your defensive skills, okay, let's say you put yourself 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever you want, and then try to find, there is only one way for white to proceed here, actually to have drawing chances. And try to find if you can, but I warn you from the already now that no, I'm not sure it's it's advisable to do. It's such a difficult task. I mean, but if you're really a strong player and you really want to test yourself in the most difficult circumstances, then you can do it. Otherwise, just wait for the continuation of this lesson and see this crazy variation, which is, according to the engine, was the only way for white to proceed in this particular position. So here, black is just threatening bishop f8 check with immediate win. So on top of other ideas, therefore, white doesn't have a very big choice in this position. The most logical move, of course, is bishop b6 to try to, first of all, to get this a5 square for the king, also to get the bishop into the game, to defend against bishop f8 check. But as you already understand, that in this particular games, the logic normal human logic doesn't work, and this move actually is losing. So what is not losing? Knight c5 check. That was the only way to proceed. King c6, e takes d5 check, queen takes d5. Now, well, the problem is that if queen takes g3, white is just getting mated. Queen d4 check and then taking on b2, it's mate. Then seemingly the only chance to avoid the mate is actually to play bishop e4, and for a moment it seems like this might work, but actually knight e4, queen e4, because the queen is pinned, so black cannot take on c5, but bishop f8 is a real cold shower, and queen d5, e d5, then white loses a knight on c5, and of course the game with it. So that's it. Basically, I think over the board during the game, I thought it was just losing. So bishop b6 is only move. I suppose the same was the same idea Topalov had, and that's why played bishop b6. But mighty engines find a way to proceed here. Queen f2. It seems like asking for bishop d4, it seems like white is just on top of all his miseries, is actually inviting black to get another piece into the attack, to get the bishop on d4. But actually, it is very important to have this square busy, that black doesn't have queen d4 check. So strangely enough, after queen f2, now I give you the first, the best lines of the engine. It's for fun if you want. It's absolutely crazy. I've rarely seen anything like that. So let's enjoy this position. Bishop d4. I suppose if bishop f8, the same idea, that white can already simply take on g3, and there is queen d4 check, and there is no mate on b2, so white can retreat with the king. So here, strangely enough, there is no mate, and it will lead to transposition. So bishop d4, queen takes g3. Now, as I mentioned, there is no queen d4 check, which would be mate otherwise. So bishop takes c5 check. If queen c5, king b3, no problem. King is safe on b3, at least safer than ever in this game. So bishop takes c5 check, king c3. It doesn't look actually too bad already for white, but there is one small detail. b4 check can be played, of course, if bishop takes b4, queen d4 check, and taking on b4. So king d2, and now bishop d6. Suddenly, double attack, the queen on g3, and white is losing the bishop on a5, but in exchange, he gets counterattack. Queen f2, queen takes a5, and now very nasty bishop e4 check. Very unpleasant move, because all of a sudden now it's white who is 3 pawns down, but actually attacking. So the best move is king b5 here, and actually, not only that there is no mate here, actually black is still better after king b5. But it's not the whole fun, because bishop d3 check seemingly leads to perpetual, but no way, king a4. Believe it or not, but king a4 leads to a better position for black. Of course, if b3 check, king a3, king a3, and you cannot mate this king. Okay, so I give you the first line of engine here. Rook e1, just positional, yeah, positional play. Queen c7, yeah, easy move to find, obviously. Just protecting the pawn on f7, and rook e4, bishop c5 for some reason. Rook c4. Now not bishop takes f2 because black will have, white will have some drawing chances. Now rook c8 is much more principal. And the sherry on the pie is after queen e1. Black already has more than one way to win, but the first, I think, line of the engine is king b5 move to finish the game in style. And then king gets back to b6, a7, and black is winning. So bishop d3 check, king a4 doesn't work for white, but queen takes f7 is possible. Still having lots of threats, seemingly. Queen d8 is the best line. You need to get, you need to free the a5 square for the king. Now, again, try to get the first line of the engine in this position. It seems like a joke when I was analyzing this game. I just couldn't believe my eyes. Something went wrong with the engine, but no, it's the best. The first line of the for white here is a3 move. Okay, a3 attack. Probably creating some play against the king. ba3, okay, bishop f4 check. No, king e2, I guess, doesn't work. I don't understand why, but ba3 is the best move. Only now king e2. And the queen b8, the best move. Queen takes e6, king a5. And this position, I think that computer says that it's black is somewhat better, but white has drawing chances here. So that was the main line, the best line for two colors. I hope you enjoyed it. It's unbelievable. I just couldn't believe that it's possible in chess. It's more requires some. It more reminds me some Fischer random chess, actually played by two drunk people. But no, those are the best moves after knight c5 check, king c6. So Topalov played bishop b6, and now that is findable. That is findable now, and I want to give you to test you now to find the fourth win for black. I can tell you it's not it's not easy, but it's not that difficult. As the previous variation, and to inspire you that in any case you have nothing to lose. I will tell you that I couldn't find it. I didn't find it over the board. The only difference that nobody has told me that there is a fourth win here. I give you this small advantage, so I was a bit handicapped compared to you. So I didn't know if there is a win. I didn't even know who is better here, frankly, even though I guess that it should be black. But there is a very nice way to win here. So try to think from the black side and try to find this beautiful combination. So I played queen takes b2, check, queen takes b2, the most logical move, but actually things are not so clear after queen takes b2. In fact, the win was knight takes e4, had to be played. Of course, well, that's the most logical move. I just couldn't really understand what to do after bishop takes e4, because of course I can play queen takes e4 check, but then white gets, this endgame might be not so easy, because actually in this endgame, the king on b4 is already not such a bad piece. It's actually quite active. So I was not sure if I don't get under attack or something, how to assess this position. But queen takes b2, this was very strong. First giving up the knight, and only then playing queen takes b2. And now, strangely enough, black just wants to play rook c8, and white cannot do much about it. For instance, in case of a4, then rook c8 is winning. I'm not sure. I saw what to do after bishop d3. I couldn't really find, how to mate after bishop d3. And after all, I'm already 2 pieces down. But here, well, I think there is more than one way actually to win, but the best is king c6. This is just killing completely, just winning on the spot, and white king is getting mated in most of the lines. Okay, yeah, this I couldn't find, not enough imagination, so I just took on b2. Now the game gets pretty direct. Take on d5. It's white's only chance, because I'm also, I guess, threatening many things, including bishop f8 check, probably. So e takes d5, rook c8. Now lots of threats. d6 check. Yeah, this I saw, and actually I found here this idea king a8. That was my idea. Very important move, because in case of fe, bishop takes b5 check. This is actually now it's, in fact, it is black who has to save the game, and it seems that he is saving it after bishop b5 check, because in case of a b5, there is rook d1 check, king e7, and now white can just take on g3. There is no mate, strangely enough, because king can take on b5 already. That's why bishop takes b5 was necessary. And let's say after king f7, king takes b5, not also a bit unstandard, not a trivial position, but it seems that white is much better here. So that's why after bishop takes b5 check, obviously king e7 is the best move here, because I still want to create the mated net. And now it's pretty direct variation. Bishop c5 check, rook takes c5, king takes c5, a b5, and it seems that actually this position is drawn. Yeah, at the end, because if queen g3, the draw is pretty clear. Queen takes c2 check, king takes b1. I just take on a1, take on a2, knight b3. Let's say queen c2. The game should be drawn here. Maybe more interesting is king b6. Very nice move, king b6. And now the first line of the engine is knight f5, knight c5. A sacrifice, but I cannot take this rook, because queen e6 check, and after king f8, knight d7 mate. And after king d8, queen d7, or maybe more elegant knight b7 mate also. So after king c5, bishop d4 has to be played. Queen takes e6 check, king f8, rook e1, queen takes c2, queen d5, king g7, and it's an equal position. So the game should end in a draw. So fe6, yes, but my idea was to play king a8, and I remember already we were in kind of time trouble a little bit, obviously, of course, after such a complicated game. And yes, my opponent, he just didn't get the main idea of this. He didn't understand what is this king a8. There was only one way for white to save the game after king a8. Actually, I thought it was probably winning, but there was a study-like way to save the game. Again, it's so complicated that I don't even give you this task. I mean, maybe only what I can ask you, if you want another exercise, is to find the best way of playing. Yeah, I mean, to find a way how not to lose with white by force. And that would be already enough, because, of course, I saw the main line more or less, and I saw that black is better, but was not sure if winning or not. I will show you now. Computer finds an amazing way to make a draw there. But it's actually, there is only one way for white to save the game. So think a bit about it, or think a lot about it. The position is still very complicated. So now I will give you the solution. First, okay, what was my trick? Why king a8? So the trick was that you can take on f7 with check. That actually, that's a big. Actually, it's a mistake. ef7 is losing. First, you will understand why. But first, why two other moves are losing? c4, for example, c4 seems to be why not to play c4, just to defend against bishop c3 check, yeah, because that is the main threat. But after c4, that was my trap. I was really hoping for this move, because it looks like it's maybe just winning. But knight e4, very beautiful move, knight e4, and white is getting mated. He can take on f7 first, doesn't matter, king takes f7, it doesn't change anything because he doesn't have any defense against mate. So if bishop takes c4, rook c4, king a5, rook a4 mate. If queen takes c4, bishop c3 mate, and I'm still threatening bishop c3, so then the only way to fight against bishop c3, rook c1, and now very quiet, queen takes a2, well, threatening queen a4 mate, and it's just winning immediately. So that was winning, c4, knight e4, that I saw. So, but Topalov, he couldn't get the point. I remember he looked at me with a very surprised face, and he played bishop c5 rather quickly. So why this move is bad? He missed, well, quite a simple but elegant idea, because otherwise, of course, bishop c5 would be just very strong, but he missed bishop c3 check. That is queen takes c3, a5 check. Yeah, because of this pin on the A line, on the B line, white is just losing the queen. So he played king takes b5, queen takes c3, and here the time control passed, is move 40, and he just resigned after. So that was a blunder, but yeah, it's not easy, of course, after such a complicated game to keep concentration. And there are so many strange tricks, strange ideas. I would rather, I mean, I saw that those both moves are losing. I would rather, think that white would miss knight e4 than bishop c3 check. But actually, the best way of playing was bishop takes b5 check. As you see, the same idea, that after ab, at least the king is not getting mated. And now I've analyzed this position further. I saw the arising endgame. I was not sure if it's winning or not because it's very direct. Now queen takes g3. It's extremely, study-like, impossible, of course, I'm sure, to find over the board, that because you want to take on f7. But actually, the same variation after ef7, king f7, that is already losing for white. Queen takes g3. Now black, in order not to get worse, has to play queen c3 check. It's by force. I remember this position I saw, take h5, and it's clear that it's black who is playing for a win because his pawns are terribly dangerous. The knight is on a1, and actually it is winning. It is winning by tempi. a4, h4. White has to try to come with a knight, to stop these pawns. Knight b3, h3, bishop g1. Absolutely only way to fight for white. Rook takes e2, a5. So white's chance is trying to, after h2, he can take a6 and actually probably in time to make a draw. But after rook g2, it seems that now white is not in time. Actually, white is just losing. After rook g2, a6, rook takes g1, a7, h2, a8, h1 queen. There is no perpetual and black is winning. And that is why of course, you must calculate this whole variation till the end. That is why it's very important for white to take on g3 and actually to keep the pawn on e6. Because in this, f6 is possible, but it's not playing for a win, really. But after queen c3 check, it gets to the same endgame, take, and actually this tempi is important. h5, a4, the same variation, but the king is under check on a8. Can you imagine to such a nuance in such a position that? But I'm sure normally everybody would take, especially in time trouble, would take on f7 at least and then play this endgame. But actually, this is the only way to save. Knight b3, h3, bishop g1, rook takes a2, a5. Now you see the difference that after rook g2, there is a6. Yeah, and rook g1, a7, and because a1 square is under control, so a8 comes with check. That's why black has to play h2, takes, and finally finally taken on f7, a6, and according to engine, white is just in time to make a draw here. Well, but bishop c5 was played in the game, and of course, yeah, that ended little bit disappointingly for, I guess, for everyone, because would be nice to see this, this draw, till the end here. Not for me. I didn't mind winning this game. So all in all, well, I mean, I went quite deeply. Yeah, I was showing you variations, lines. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, because it was enormous pleasure for me to play this game. Of course, also to win this game, but also just to analyze it with engines. Especially, I've analyzed it more than once, this game, and every time the position is so complicated that new, more powerful engines were finding new and new resources, and so now maybe in another 2 years there will be more powerful engine, and there will be a certain reassessment of some lines. I don't know, but again, was one of the most incredible games I've ever played in my life. I hope you liked it. I understand that it was difficult. There were a lot of variations, some crazy moves, but well, chess can be as complicated as it is. So I will try then for you to give you some rest during the next lesson, and show you something a little more conventional than this memorable game.